So improving training outcomes, issues and innovations. And the first discussion point there was providing off-job training within a given budget. So we started there, what was a suitable budget? We didn't have an answer for that. Number of issues there about having the resource development there, using it, having a common platform to development and harmonised approach. One of the things we identified was what's the motivation of the teachers and trainers and them getting involved with industry and industry getting involved with them. Also, we recognised that one of the issues was employer engagement, but then we looked at it from the other end about whether it was a trainer engagement and who was there a knowledge that there was the opportunity to do those sorts of things out with industry and vice versa. We touched on there about we'd spoken earlier in the day about CPD and ongoing training, and I think that's a whole of industry thing, not just the trainers and the apprentices coming through. It's all of industry. It's life learning. There is a requirement in the standards for currency of assessment, but they didn't appear to be for training, which seemed a bit odd, and there didn't seem to be much enforcement around that. Norm, are you listening? No? Good. Was there anything major I've missed out of that from my table? No. So did we have any innovative solutions? Couldn't we? Yeah, we had too many. So then the on-job training stuff. So what do you do out in the workplace? We recognised that unless you're a really big employer, it was going to be really hard to give you exposure to the apprentices' exposure to the range of things that they needed to see. So we started talking about job swapping or secondments, having a pool or a connection mechanism so that people could see who had what capability and capacity to provide that training on the job, and then be able to potentially swap those apprentices. Came up that there's a lot of issues about training plan enforcement. It seemed to be, which was a bit disturbing, that a lot of the small and medium employers they were either saying they didn't realise there was meant to be a training plan and e-profiling done. So there's a big issue about connection and awareness raising. If they do know, are they just ignoring it, or do they really not know what they're supposed to be doing? So there's a big comms piece there. The other thing that came up was about a holistic approach to training. So not just seeing the apprentices as been with the industry for 4 years, but whole of life learning again. Looking at the trajectory through their careers so they could understand where they were going in the longer term, and understanding that the motivation should be there to start really making sure they built those core skills and gained those, because it would serve them right through the future of their career. We talked about grade books, so I think that was a solution that was on e-profiling. There was some work we mentioned about group training organisations, which were good for workplace evidence gathering and provided a good connection platform. Again, is anything else I've missed from our table? No. Thank you.
We touched on a lot of the same points as Group 1 identified. Our question was, first of all, go for the training and assessment compliance. I identified, and I like the analogy, the taste of the cake wasn't quite right. ASCO identified that the delivery of the assessment was not quite right. So we at least agree on that. The mini capstones was identified as a quick, easy and timely place to check that the guys, gals, participants are progressing at the expected rate. It's too late to catch them in my safety net at the LEA. It's like falling from the high wire, and you're landing in the net. You'll survive, but you won't bounce up again. If we get them at the earlier stages, it gives us a spot check on their profiling also. Their on-the-job training has to be up to date. Whether it's true or not, what they've done on the job's a whole nother story, and that's a mentoring employer relationship type thing. But at that point, you can check that their profiling's at least up to date. And capstones currently are envisaged to be at 3 stages through and a final one. Maybe that'll be enough, maybe that won't be enough. We just don't know until we get some more of the results back. I did hear anecdotally, and I haven't proven it yet, that they applied the EOS first capstone to a group of students in Victoria. They all failed, so instead of saying, hey, what's happening? What's wrong with our teaching methods? They said, well, we won't use that test anymore. We'll go back to the Victorian one in the units. And that's the message we've got to get into the training organisations. It's the outcome we're interested in. We can't just tick and flick anymore. Which points to our nationally consistent online assessment. That takes the decisions away from the college. I mean, I've heard it myself. Yeah, look, Johnny, we know you meant a kilowatt. You only wrote 900 watts, but I'll give you that mark. When really a kilowatt versus 900 watts could make a difference in the real world. So we've got to take away that either relationship, I hate to say bribery and corruption, but the awkwardness of failing a student sometimes, and the non-objectivity of the assessment. So if we had a nationally delivered and ideally externally moderated exam, I think it would be good. Auditing of the RTO's pass-failure rates, so those mini capstones and the final capstones. If you're having, say, 25% of your students fail, it may affect your funding. You may cop an audit from ASQA to find out where you're falling over. And that's really pushing the quality and the effectiveness of the training. It's not just gathering numbers. Oh, this lot's got consistently 25% fail on their first try. We need to go and talk to them. We need to try and find out why this is, look at the delivery of the package. And on the other hand, if you've got 100% going through, you then go to have a look at it and say, are they tick and flick or is it a brilliant system? So that gives us some visibility into there. Blended learning on the job, off the job was covered earlier. There's an assumption that from both sides, I think, the college is assuming that they should have learnt that on the job, so they may pass it off. The boss is assuming that he should have learnt that at college, so he's off letting him do it, or just doesn't get the opportunity to try him on the job, doesn't know that he hasn't learnt that, and that becomes a problem for us later in the unsupervised areas, and validation around that. Any questions on that bit, the first question? Yeah. The second part was the currency of the trainers and assessors. Initially we said pay them more. You know, a happy teacher's going to be more inclined to put themselves out, but it was rightly pointed out, yeah, 6 months later they've forgotten that you've given them a pay rise and they're still just as disgruntled with working with these kids that probably shouldn't be doing an apprenticeship in electronics or electrical anyway, a college that won't fund them properly, and an employer who doesn't care. We've got to bring the three together. We've got to fund them correctly. We've got to select these students correctly and have an appetite for learning, as well as more closely, and I'm not getting into the funding of this one, but mentoring of the employer as well as the employee. It shouldn't be a one-sided thing. It's got to be a partnership all the way through. I'm not sure whether it was just because I was under 18, but when I first signed up for my apprenticeship, Mum and Dad had to sign too, to say that they would get me through this as well as the employer and the college. So, yeah, that's what we need to get. Adequately resourced so that they can do PD. And the other thing was the uncertainty of tenure. A lot of teachers are now sessional teachers, they're on one-year contracts, some on even less. Where's the incentive to improve yourself if you're not likely to have that job next year? I understand from a business point of view, a TAFE would be reluctant to give a teacher a 5-year contract, not knowing whether they're going to be funded next year or the year after or the year after that, or whether the enrolments will be there. So maybe we need a pool of dollars to pay teachers, and it doesn't matter where you are, you move around. I don't know what the answer is, but tenure is more likely to become an incentive to self-improve. Industry feedback. We, through the Victorian TAFE Senate, go to the teachers of the colleges, or at least their representatives, and say, this is what we're finding out there. They don't know how to connect the earth, bond it and measure it. Can you concentrate on how you teach that? Or DC is a big concern at the moment. Can you work on that? And we're not departing from the curriculum requirements in the package, but we're emphasising the stuff that people are not getting right in the field. And industry also have an opportunity to feedback to the colleges through the Senate. And structured PDs for teachers, always an issue for teachers, even harder with the trades. Yeah, you've got teaching staff there, you have to backfill them in a class, but at least they're there in a learning environment and they're familiar with learning. We try to get the trade in for a PD, which we're desperately trying to do on various occasions as the regs change or the wiring rules change. First, you've got to get them back in the classroom, where they were probably terrified last time I was there, because it was the LEA they did. That might be it. Put a teacher in front of them and take them off the tools for hours and hours and hours. So it's not always practical. Queensland have an online CPD requirement when renewing your licence, which is every 5 years, Brian, or 3? Yeah, every 5 years. So better than nothing. Not a particularly big overhead, but you don't know who's actually filling it in. We anecdotally here, it's the apprentice that tells the boss how to do these sort of things, because he's just learnt it. The boss has forgotten it. I've got no problem with that, as long as it ends up right at the end. And PD is always very difficult to induce into people in the field. Time up? Yeah. Yeah.